Hey, how's it going? This is Jeff with Final Boss Editing. I'm going to be editing a short story, pretty short, like about 6 pages, called The Orchard, and I'm going to be typing in my edits as I go. So I'll put on track changes here so it's clear. And then, yeah, you'll kind of see those edits as we go along and then go from there. Great. And then, I'll kind of even do a review of those edits as we do a final read through. So feel free to comment in chat. I want to make sure my chat's working because I always forget to check it. Sometimes it makes me sign in. Yeah. Like this time. Yeah. Shame, shame, shame. That would be embarrassing if actually people were trying to talk to me. And yeah, thank you, Kappa. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and get started. The Orchard. It wasn't that long ago when you'd look up and see, when you could see, when you could see the stars turn on like light bulbs out here, Charles Dalton said as he pressed his knuckles. Joe said. Charles Dalton said as he pressed his knuckles out from his jeans pockets, forming little blue hills. He stared at the afternoon sky, peeking over the waving tops of his orange trees. I almost would think that it would be better to have some sort of comparison. Hey, Foxy Lady, how's it going? So I'm doing an edit on the Orchard, the one we talked about a little bit ago. See if I can get it up to snuff. So we will see what happens, and feel free to put in your notes because I imagine you probably have as good of a insight into what needs to change as I do. He stared at the afternoon sky, peeking over the waving tops of his orange trees for a few moments before he turned to the broker and continued. He stared at the afternoon sky, comma, peeking, but no. That's kind of a weird. That's kind of like a weird phrase. I would just break it up. So, period. The setting sun peeked over the waving tops of his orange trees, the ripest fruit of all. Now it's too cliche of an image. He stared at the afternoon sky. The setting sun peeked over the waving tops of his orange trees. That's okay, so let's read that again. Charles Dalton said as he pressed his knuckles out from his jeans pockets. His jeans apostrophe s pockets. Jeans pockets. Yeah, forming little blue hills. He stared at the afternoon sky. The setting sun peeked over waving tops. He stared at the afternoon sky. The setting sun peeped over the waving tops of his orange trees. He let his eyes drift over the rustling leaves, trying not to notice the only orange in sight. What was the sun. It is just another. The sun used to dive right into that sea of reds, purples, reds and purples, reds, purples, and oranges. Right into the west end of my orchard. The stars would just pop up, like dust settling from Apollo's chariot. You know what that is, right? They're bringing the horses in. I'd stand next to that orange grove there. Next to my grove. Next to the grove. Look down the road to the coastal mountains and watch the sky as the day faded west. The broker, see if there's any, no. The broker, Robert Strafford, straightened his Snoopy tie. Straightened his Snoopy tie, rubbed dust. I don't need sun there. Rubbed dust off his polished shoes, sighed in frustration. That's probably. Well, Mr. Dalton, imagine what the tenants of the new development will think when they witness. This phenomenon for themselves. He paused. I want to make sure that's Charles talking. Charles paused and looked across his open land at the brightening lights of Los Angeles. Looked across his open land. I don't need to. I just think Los Angeles city lights. What's like a good word for burning? Trying to find a good thesaurus for that. Smoldering, maybe? Glowing, scorching, incandescent. I don't know if that's how you spell incandescent, but that's my best attempt. Any more homies joining us? Just me and the Fox Lady. How's it going, Fox Lady? Any comments or thoughts on stuff we should add or take away here if my edits are well founded? The incandescent glow of Los Angeles city lights. Let's do like rose to meet. They ain't gonna see it because it's gone, Bob. That's my point. City's too close now. He waved towards the dull glow burning in the south. He waved towards the... Let's see. Brainstorming incandescent is good. Smoldering or yeah, smoldering's a word. Smoldering. I'm probably the smoldering incandescent glow. Let's do the incandescent, and then I'll do smoldering down here, where he waved toward the smoldering light. City light. It reminds me of... It's like... Comes up around 4 in the morning. But it never rises. It just sits there and festers. So there are no stars to miss, Mr. Dalton. And remember, your proximity to Los Angeles is the reason you're receiving such a generous offer from my client, the broker said. Again, I don't want to refer... I don't know if I want to... I may want to refer to him by name instead of the broker. Or I would not capitalize it, at least. The broker said again as he raised his eyebrows at Charles, who stood a foot taller than him. Smoldering is a word. Foxtering. How was your day, Fox lady? I'm glad to hear. Hey, what's up, Moocher? How's it going? So right now I can scroll up a little bit so you can see we're editing a short story called The Orchard. So I can kind of start from the top too, since I just am starting to edit, because I kind of want to see how these notes are shaping up anyways. All right, let's see. You know, it wasn't that long ago when you could see the stars turn on like light bulbs out here, Charles Dalton said as he pressed his knuckles out from his jeans pockets, forming little blue hills. He stared at the afternoon sky. The setting sun peeked over the waving tops of his orange trees. He let his eyes drift over the rustling leaves, searching for signs of fruit, but the only orange in sight was the sun. Finally, he turned to the broker and continued. The sun used to dive right into the west end of my orchard, and the stars would just pop up, like dust settling from Apollo's chariot. You know what that is, right? After bringing the horses in, I'd stand next to the grove there, next to the grove. Next to the grove. There. Look down the road at the coastal mountains over yonder and watch the sky as the day faded west. The broker, Robert Strafford, straightened his Snoopy tie, rubbed dust off his polished shoes, grunted, and said, Well, Mr. Dalton, imagine what the tenants of the new development... I don't know if we need that. Maybe it's a bit excessive. I'll just say hi on chat as well. I always kind of have this impulse to like be redundant on chat, but maybe I'm just weird. I'm probably just weird. Cool. Straightened Snoopy rubbed some dust off his polished shoes, grunted, and said, Well, Mr. Dalton, imagine what the tenants of the new development will think when they witness this phenomenon for themselves. Charles paused, looked across the open land, the incandescent, and looked across his open land. The incandescent grow. He does a lot of looking, doesn't he? And turned his gaze. Turned his gaze south. He's looking. He stares here, pauses, and looked across his open land. I'm gonna make sure that's spaced. The incandescent. I'll make sure that's spaced. No. Okay, so Charles paused, looked across his open land, and looked across his open land. Maybe I should have like a cue there, where, like the developer waves and then he looks. Um, like. Yeah, what's up? Good. Well, hello. Sorry about that. We were just figuring out some roommate stuff. Soon, this will no longer be the backdrop for Final Boss editing. Well, I'll probably be moving in the near future, so we're figuring out many of the details, and also want to say hi to the bro and give him a hug. That's also just general best practice in life. Cool. Oh, hey, what's up, Judy? I just noticed you jump on. Yeah, good to see you. Well, no worries, no pressure to hang out for forever, but absolutely good to see you, and I hope your writing is going well as well. I feel bad I haven't been able to tune into your awesome cast as well, just because sadly they've been working us pretty hard, and it's always like right during like my meeting hour at my day job. Cool. Aw, look at you guys. When he does have his shoes, don't say that he stood up again. It's tricky for me to picture how he's sitting. Mmm. That's a good call. I wanted to fix that whole paragraph because I'm probably gonna cut and start with a dialogue. And then, well, Mr. Dalton, imagine what the tenants of the new development will think when they witness this. The broker, Robert Stratford, said. Said the broker said as he straightened his snoopy tires. And the broker, said as he straightened his snoopy tie, rubbed some dust upon his shoes, and waved vaguely. Cool. Just delete comment. Okay, cool. So here we are. And kind of what I'm doing in this paragraph particularly is I'm leading with the dialogue because I think it's a little bit more interesting, and it's actually, this is not a terrible line. So I think I almost want the dialogue to communicate the character more. Um, um, you know, I want the dialogue to communicate the character more than description sometimes, and maybe that's just my screenplay background, where a lot of what the character says kind of serves as like a secondary action. So you can I kind of lean on that a little, or try to lean on that as much, if not a little bit more, than my description to get that across. Okay. What was going on in the last stream? Oh, so the last stream, Judy, was an RPG. So it's kind of an improv version of storytelling where pretty much, you kind of are given a set of rules. You kind of roll dice to kind of add this probability aspect into the world, and you kind of play through an adventure with friends who are all in character, and it's pretty fun. I had never done one before, and our friend Chase, the guy who in that scene, very similar to D&D, so it uses that same game mechanic exactly. So I figured it counted as far as storytelling because it's more of the improv side of storytelling than the more prose side of storytelling. So I figured it was just like it was above the bar to get into the stream. So that was the rationale, and it's just fun hanging out with friends and being silly as possible, which is an important life principle. Cool. Okay. Charles paused and looked across his open land. The incandescent glow of Los Angeles' city lights rose between the southern foothills. Gritting his teeth, Charles turned away and said, "They ain't gonna see it because it's gone, Bob. That's my point. City's too close." He waved towards the smoldering city light. They both wave. He nodded toward the smoldering city. The smoldering city light. It's like the sun, just before it comes up around 4 in the morning. It looks like the sun, but it never rises. It just sits there and festers. So there are no stars to miss, Mr. Dalton. And remember, your proximity to Los Angeles is the reason you're receiving such a generous offer from my client, Robert. I'm going to do by name or else it gets confusing. Robert. The Robert. Robert said again as he raised his eyebrows at Charles, who stood a foot taller than him. Looking down, Charles noticed the abundance of gel the broker had used to comb his black hair and ran his fingers through his own loose gray hair with a kind of relief. The broker set I don't know if I should do kind. Silliness is very, very important indeed. Also, one thing, and you guys are some of our awesome regulars, so I actually am kind of curious to hear your thoughts on this. But one thing I'm considering doing on the stream is there is some really good. Oop, did Mooch have to take off? Uh oh. Oh, nice. That's where it's not showing up. Yeah, I wanted to kind of make his character a little bit different. But ADD. I lost my train of thought. But yeah, one thing I was considering doing is, reading a few really good short stories that are in the public domain. So, there's no rights protection or anything like that. And kind of talking through some of the techniques those professional writers use. So kind of like doing like a little literary hour and, have like a pipe in the where's my pipe at, have like the pipe going and the fire in the background or whatever, and just like reading a short story, reading something very quick, and then just talking through like, oh hey, why did this work, why did it not work, those types of things to kind of get a sense of like, hey, with when you're looking at professional writing, what are the differences and what are the techniques they're using. So something worth thinking about as well. Los Angeles, okay, Robert said as he raised his eyebrows. Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be fun. It'd be fun. I'll do it with the Foxy Lady, and we'll cook up some tea and, you know, have some or some whiskey, one of the two, and that'll be fun. Looking down, Charles noticed the abundance of gel the broker had used to comb his black hair and ran his fingers through his own loose gray hair with a kind of relief. The broker set his slim briefcase on the hood of his candy apple red Porsche and rummaged through its contents. Smoking Jeff Fez. Yeah, I think so. I think that'd be good. I have to find my Fez, but or like one of those pith helmets, I always loved that old Jungle Book movie. Deal. Okay, well, if you guys are game, we'll try it. We'll try it one of these days. And it'll probably be like weekend, Saturday, Sunday is usually when our time is more readily available, and I don't have to stream at like 10 at night. But we'll try it on the weekend one of these days, and that'll be a lot of fun. And Fezes are cool. I think I have a Fez back in my hometown, not in San Francisco, sadly. It is indeed. I'll get some open source performances of Mozart or just record. I mean, I have this piano over here, so I'll record a few, whatever I still remember, and then go from there and just play it on loop. Nice. Okay, cool. The ADD, it's a real thing. Robert said again as he raised his eyebrows, okay, set his slim briefcase on his candy apple red Porsche and rummaged through its contents. A moment later, he shoved a pile of papers into Charles's arms. I need these signed and on my desk by Monday. If you want the offer, it's the highest it'll ever be. I've lived here most of my life. Don't suppose y'all would let me stay and just build around my house? Charles replied, motioning to this stocky building behind him. I'm gonna do. To point at. For safety reasons, we couldn't allow it. Besides, we've seen. Ah, yeah. Well, I can try to let me think. I can try to do a maybe like a Friday night, Judy, if that works. You know, either way, the recordings always be there. But yeah. So we'll figure out a good time. You know, obviously, if you guys kind of say, hey, this was fun, let's do it again, or you know, it helped me kind of you know because sometimes that's what I struggle with whenever I read a story. I get so into the plot and the story that I usually very seldom am able to kind of draw out like the techniques that they're using because they really are some really cool things that they're doing and very smart things that these writers do. But so often it just is like over my head. So it'd probably be a good opportunity for me to you know, get my butt in gear. You know, like I got so many books of fiction. It's probably like my the highest like weight, the most like if I weighed all my possessions, maybe even it would beat my bed of like how many books I have. I have way too many. So I probably should actually do myself a favor and read through a few of them. Okay. Before putting, for safety reasons, we couldn't allow it. Besides, we've seen the profits you've made from your orchards recently. Why starve here when you could sell this land and live in a huge condo in Santa Monica or downtown? In downtown, I just want to do. You can self-send and buy a condo in downtown Santa Monica with his tall uh, Charles's Charles tall, thin frame of bewilderment as he stared at his worn hands. You don't think an old farmer like me could live in a place like that, do you? He rubbed his unshaven chin and gave Bob a quizzical smile. And this is something I don't do as often in my prose anymore, but yeah. This is a short story called The Orchard. So I can scroll up to the top, but pretty much the premise so far is this old rancher, and this is kind of more of a very short story. Like this is not more than six double spaced pages, but it's just kind of this old rancher is about to sell his land, and he's kind of deciding, making that decision whether to sell his kind of like home or to keep it. Oh my goodness. Well, yeah, get some. Night Moocher. We'll try to stream earlier in the day for you, buddy. I feel that our my schedule sometimes is like so intense that it only allows for late night streams. Sadly, Charles's tall, thin frame hunched in bewilderment as he stared at his worn hands. You don't think an old farmer like me could live in a place like that, do you? He rubbed his unshaven chin and gave Bob a quizzical smile. Nowadays, there ain't too many places left for us folks. Besides, I swear the air's fresher than usual tonight. I want to establish that he hasn't had rain in a long time, and then have that kind of be this like resolution. That's what I would want. Something more external conflict. No. Uh, well, probably I don't know the primary one of the big stakeholders in Final Boss editing is the Foxy Lady 17, who is you know very very good editor herself. So if we can talk her into doing a few early streams, we may be able to do an early one tomorrow if Foxy Lady is down. So I'll probably be on tomorrow night if that works. So I hope that yeah, I hope that works. But yeah, we'll try to mellow out the time a little bit more down the road. I think things will start stabilizing at work, hopefully in the near future, because I'm just getting too old for all these crazy ups and downs. So. The broker, ignoring Charles' comment, the broker set his slim briefcase on the hood of the candy apple red Porsche and rummaged through its contents. He shoved a pile of papers into Charles' arms. He drew a pile of papers from his. He drew out a pile of papers and shoved them into Charles's arms. I need these signed on my desk by Monday. If you want the offer, it's the highest it'll be. I've lived here most of my life. I suppose you wouldn't let me stay and just build around my house, Charles replied, rolling up the papers and using them to point at the stocky building behind him, before putting the papers. Probably don't need that last bit. Night, buddy. Get some rest, man. Have a good day at work tomorrow, dude. Don't get too sleepy. Cool. For safety reasons, we couldn't allow it. Besides, we've seen the profits you've made from your orchards recently. Why starve here? I guess I do kind of. I did want to bring a. What's the drought? I can't imagine they'll trust to take the offer. Besides, we are aware well of your finances, or lack thereof. Why starve here when you could sell this land, this dry land, and live and buy a condo in downtown Santa Monica with a very healthy nest egg to spare? Charles's tall, thin frame hunched in bewilderment as he stared at his worn hands. You don't think an old farmer like me could live in a place like that, do you? He rubbed his unshaven chin. Oh. How early in the morning? I don't have too early work, so that's why I can get away with late nights. So I usually have to be at the office around like 9:30. I don't know if that's what that was referring to, but yes. 9:30 is pretty manageable. It's about like 11 or 10:30, 11 right now, so I can usually go till midnight or so. Which I'm gonna try to do a round of edits on this tonight and just get it done. You don't think an old farmer like me could live in a place like that, do you? He rubbed his unshaven chin and gave Bob a quizzical smile. Nowadays, there aren't too many places left for us folks. Besides, I'd swear the air's fresher than usual tonight. Buy a ranch in Montana, Robert tersely replied. That's pretty implied. Robert replied, comma, his eyes. The last remnants of his positive veneer faded. Oh no! I tabbed all the way to the top. Ugh, I hate when that happens. You could quadruple your acreage and make tons, and triple your revenues. That would probably be what a broker would say. You know what that is, right? We're not going to offer you a price this generous again, Mr. Dalton. My client is aware that in a few years, that without my client is aware that if the drought you will hardly have enough to eat, and then you will have to take anything we offer. I have assured you would be reasonable. If I hadn't assured him you would be reasonable, he would have let you be stubborn, starved you out, and never given you a price like this. It's been a tough season, the farmer replied. It's been a tough season, the farmer replied, kicking the dust at his feet into a trench and staring up at the cloudless sky. Awful dry, but I've survived worse. It's been a tough decade, Mr. Dalton. Like I said, it's been a tough decade, Mr. Dalton. One of the worst in record. One of the worst on record. Robert replied, softening his tone. You don't have to go down with your ship because you have some hope. Some vain hope that weather patterns will change or the stars will flicker or whatever. Remember, I'm on your side here. Charles narrowed his eyes, studying the broker and remaining silent. They stared at each other. They held each other's gaze. But before tossed me from his horse, jumped inside, and said out of his window, be sure to sign those forms and get them on my desk by Monday. With that, the engine roared, and the car sped towards the interstate, leaving a cloud of exhaust and dust in its wake as it wound out of sight. Boy's got one hell of a mouth on him, Charles mumbled as his eyes followed the car's retreat. He turned towards the old house. Oh, wait. I put that after softening his tone. Maybe I could just do this. It's been a tough decade, Mr. Dalton. One of the worst on record. Please don't. Please don't go down with your ship. So it's like actually he cares, maybe. Is that better? Seems vague for that. Yeah, that's actually a good point. Let me see here. Please don't go down with your ship because you have some vain hope that the weather patterns will change or the stars will flicker. Look at the facts. Look at the weather reports. Remember, I'm on your side here. Charles narrowed his eyes, studying the broker and remaining silent. They held each other's gaze for a few long seconds before the broker grunted, tossed his briefcase into his Porsche, jumped inside, and called out of his window. Be sure to sign those forms and get them on my desk by Monday. With that, the engine roared, and the car sped towards the interstate, leaving a cloud of exhaust and dust in its wake as it wound out of sight. It's a bit verbose. I probably don't need with that, because it's kind of apparent. The engine roared, and the car sped towards the interstate. The car bounded towards the interstate, leaving a cloud of exhaust and dust in its wake as it wound out of sight. Boy's got one hell of a mouth on him. Yay! That's nice. It's good to know that these edits are actually. It's just that you kind of don't always, when you're editing, get like the full sense. Like you kind of know where the problems are, but like usually the recommended resolutions are not always the most clear, or at least you don't always know if it's gonna work. Boy's got one hell of a mouth on him, Charles mumbled as his eyes followed the cars. Those forms. That's also a good point. Sign the title over. Maybe it would be because he gives him. There's another thing where he gets the forms. I probably should correct both of them if I'm going to correct one, because I bet you that. Paper? It's a one-time offer. I need it signed on my desk by Monday. If you want this deal. It's the highest it'll. Couldn't allow it. Okay. Form. Sure to find the term sheet and get it on my paper on my desk by Monday. Cool. Hopefully that helps. We'll see. Yeah, good call. I think that's much better. Boy's got one hell of a mouth on, Charles mumbled as his eyes followed the car's retreat. He turned towards his old house and climbed the porch steps towards the door. It was a good-sized, stout sort of home. If it had arms, they would be open for an embrace. The russet roof sagged slightly with the repose that marks the aged the aged and wise. Walls that once housed a large, bustling family now peacefully basked in the afternoon sun. How many spaces? 1, 2, 3, 4. Wow. Take those out. A few large oaks had cozied up to the corners of the home, and the hedge in front provided a green contrast to the peeling white paint on the wide porch. On the broad, wide and wide, you don't want that accidental alliteration, because it just makes the read jarring. Unless I use broad here. I always check because, yeah, that's okay, it's good. Because sometimes if words are too close, you can change one, and then it'll, if the stack, it's okay. Indeed. Good observation. That is very on point. The north wind picked up as Charles pushed open the door and walked inside, muttering a few more under-the-breath comments about the broker, which echoed through the screen. The door. The screen snapped shut behind him. The screen. Why is it giving me this green thing? What you got? Nothing. The screen door snapped shut behind him. Charles's chair. I've been doing it differently the whole rest of the time. Slid easily across the smooth, worn wooden floor as he took his place at the kitchen table. He pulled the documents from the pocket and laid them out in front of him. An old soup can turned spin as he scooted his chair close to the table and rested his reading glasses on the tip of his nose. An urge in his gut told him to pull one of his favorite books from its shelf. I'm going to break this up. An old soup can turned pencil to rail as he screwed his search across the table. He set his reading. He rested his reading glasses on the tip of his nose, and the number came into focus. 15 million. And all he had to do, sign. Sign away. It's implied the tension, but the tension drops like he breathes. That's a good note. Let me see. Maybe it's like exhale slowly and turns to his house. Turned towards his house. Turned towards his house and climbed the porch steps towards the door. It was a good size distant towards. I want to break that out. This description starts right from home. If it had arms, it would be hoping for an embrace. The russet roof sagged slightly with the repose that marks the aged and the wise. Walls that once housed a large bustling family now peacefully basked in the afternoon sun. A few large oaks had cozied up to the corners of the home, and the hedge in front provided a green comma. And that's another independent clause. The north wind picked up as Charles walked inside, muttering a few more under the breath comments about the broker. The screen door snapped shut behind him. Charles's chair slid easily across the smooth, worn wooden floor as he took his place at the kitchen table. Yeah, I think the exhaled slowly hopefully helps with that. But yeah, great. That was a super solid note. Dramatic tension to match the scene's tension. Do you mean like and you're just saying that like by maybe like I think I tried a little bit by adding this exhale slowly. Maybe I can elaborate on that more. Do you think it probably needs a little bit more just to kind of like show that little bit of a ramp down? Maybe I should. Charles mumbled, his eyes full as the cars. We'll see. Yeah, hopefully that. Let me know if you think that's helping or detracting. I always am trying to figure out the best way on these, the best way to piece together these edits here. He rested his reading glasses on the tip of his nose, and the number came into focus: $15 million. And all he had to do was sign away his home. An urge in his gut told him to stand up. Pull one of his favorite books from its shelf and read it until he forgot about the whole thing. The broker's sharp tone, the contracts, and the term sheets. Crisp, formal print took the energy from his legs. He supposed he must have read everything in the house twice over anyways. Yeah, so probably add a little bit more. Got it. Okay, let me see. What would work here? Charles molded his eyes, felt the car's retreat. He sighed and felt tension ease from his shoulders. Trying not to look at his orchard's dry leaves, he turned toward his old house. That's my go to bed alarm, Jeff. Hey, Silent Willow. So today, editing a short story called The Orchard. So pretty much the premise is the this old kind of rancher is it's been a drought. He can't really afford to keep his place anymore. Sweet, thanks. I'm glad it worked. So this old rancher can't afford to keep his place anymore, and ends up is negotiating with his broker for the sale. So it's like his home, but he has this like kind of $15 million offer for these guys to buy it and put developments over it or whatever. So here, he turned toward his old house, climbed the porch steps to the door. It was a good-sized, stout sort of home. If it had arms, they would be open for an embrace. The russet roof sagged slightly with repose that marks the aged, and the wise. Walls that once housed a large bustling family now peacefully basked in the afternoon sun. A few large oaks cozied up to the corners of the home, and the hedge in front provided a green contrast to the peeling white paint on the broad porch. The north wind picked up as Charles walked inside, muttering a few more under-the-breath comments about the broker. The screen door snapped shut behind him. Charles's chair slid easily across the smooth, worn wooden floor as he took his place at the kitchen table. He pulled the documents from his pocket and laid them in front of, and he pulled term sheets and laid them across the table and spread them. No, I already see the kitchen table. In front of him. And spread them out in front of him. An old soup can turned pencil holder rattled as he scooted his chair closer to the table. So I'm using table I don't like that. Good. It is nighttime over here in sunny California, or actually rainy California right now. But yes, it is. It's doing good. Just kind of cranking through this nice little short story. It's pretty digestible, only 7 pages, so it's thankfully not too much of a. It's not going to be too big for a stream, so this is kind of fun. So I can kind of do it all in one big fell swoop. Let me see. Yeah. Judy's been awesome though. Had some really good feedback on just like transitioning between scenes, which is always something that I think is tricky for every writer. An old soup can turned pencil around. He scooted his chair. Scooted up his chair. He rested his reading glasses on the tip of his nose, and the number came into focus. $15 million, and all he had to do was sign away his home. He only needed to sign away his home. An urge in his gut told him to stand up, pull one of his favorite books from its shelf, and read it until he forgot about the whole thing. But the broker's sharp tone and the term sheet's crisp formal print took the energy from his legs. He supposed he must have read everything in that house twice over anyway. His home hadn't changed much since his parents raised him in it. He lived in a snug spot between the pages of an old photo album. The handmade shelf in the bathroom still leaned to one side from the time. That seems a bit. Them time zones, indeed. This seems a bit jarring. That house. Not even the book selection. No. I don't know what I would do there, but that seems to be a bit of a funny transition. He lived in a snug spot between the pages of an old photo album. The handmade shelf in the bathroom still leaned to one side from the time his sister tried to use its wicker top as a trampoline and nearly fell out of the window. The old rocking chair in the front porch marked the spot where his grandfather told his grandmother that they no longer had to rent, that he'd bought the farm. He wondered what they would say to their grandson if they knew he was selling their precious orchards. He closed his eyes. That would be a new train of thought, so a new paragraph. If he closed his eyes and thought about it hard enough, he could imagine his family's voices filling the empty hallways with conversation and laughter. Those years. It's a lot of flashback. Oh, blah, 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 blah. I think it needs more drama. Yeah. Yeah, maybe I should rearrange. Yeah, I think you're right. Maybe I should rearrange it. I think probably the grandfather one is probably the most compelling. Um, um, the old rocking chair in the front porch. Did I do a copy? What? The old rocking chair on the front porch marked the spot where his grandfather told his grandfather. What did they say if they use sign their precious orchards? Hmm. Yeah, I think it's just I think I agree with both of you guys. I think what I do want to do is make the flashback because only these two paragraphs, so I really want to make it count. Um, a new word, something more descriptive and compelling. Yeah, that's probably true. Um, Probably their orchards. Felt himself blush. And they raised Dead raised his parents here had fought to keep the land. He and his sister. They could wish for. And then I can bring in like this. Oops, wrong. Copy paste. Even now, he felt like. Mm, and then I can bring that. I think you're right, though. I just needed context. Um, hmm. Yeah, the old rocking chair. Okay, yeah, I'll reread it. So what I'll probably do next is once I finish this little red line, I'll save a copy of this, so I can make sure that all the notes are there, and then I'll accept all the changes, and then take another final read through, which should be a lot faster. That raised him and his parents. That raised him and his parents here. That fought to keep the land. He and his sister had the best childhood they could wish for, because his grandfather had saved enough money to buy. Even now, even now he felt like he lived in a snug spot between pages of an old photo album. And that would be there. Okay. I kind of probably want another example. Hmm. Precious needs. Why? Since words are telling. Hmm. Oh, good call. Where did you spot those? Let me see where they are. Yeah. Oh, the old rocking. Yeah, maybe he blushed. Mm-hmm. Felt, tasted, sounded. Let's see where that. Oh, I'm trying to. Even now. I don't know if I like this. I'm trying to preserve it to some degree, but I'm debating on maybe cutting this out altogether because I don't think it's really doing much. I'm just gonna cut these for sure. But I don't like these 3 paragraphs yet. What was it done? Oh, before his urge to grab a book. Where does he grab a book? Oh, oh yeah, I was gonna pull that one out. Maybe I'll take a look at this. Oh, where's this thing? Felt. Oops. And tension eased. Oh, that's another one. Okay, cool. The old rocking chair in the front porch marked the spot where his grand queso, $15 million, and he only needed to sign away his home. The old rocking chair on the front porch marked the spot where his grandfather told his grandfather told his grandmother that they'd no longer have to rent, that he'd bought the farm. He wondered what they would say to his grandson if they knew he was selling their orchards, their dream to start a family, their home. He blushed. They'd raised him and his parents here. They'd fought to keep the land. He and his sister had the best childhood they could wish for because his grandfather had saved enough to buy. Had saved enough for the orchard. Even now, he lived in a snug spot between the pages of an old photo album because of them. The handmade shelf in the bathroom still leaned to one side. I don't think that's useful. Close his eyes and imagine his family's voices filling the now empty hallways with conversation laughter. Those years they did everything together. Fishing, movies, stargazing, everything. But like the dandelion, it only took a puff of wind to scatter the family to the four corners. Charles was a stem that stayed behind, making that marking that the beating heart of a family had thrived there once. I don't know about that. Sign away his gift or treasure something more than home. I don't know. Nope. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out where exactly. And the old rocking chair on the front porch. That makes sense. Yeah. The wind rose outside, and the old rocking chair on the front porch. Mark the spot. Where's that chair? Mark the spot. Mark the spot where his grandfather had told his grandmother they no longer had to rent, that had bought the farm. He wondered what they would say to their grandson if they knew he was selling their orchards, their dream to start a family, their nest egg. Now, the dream to start a family. He blushed. I think I should just pull it. I think you're right because it's already implied. Ooh, past is good or something similar, maybe? Sign away his comfort, his past. Oh, yeah, I think that's good. Maybe I'll just do sign because I was actually debating that before, and I think I'm just leaning towards saying less because I think like the next three scenes are like already kind of like expressing that. So I may just kind of opt on the side of lighter writing. So I may just do like you only need $15 million and you only need to sign. The wind rose outside because then it brings in, and the rocking chair on the front porch creaked. That chair marked the spot where its grandfather told his grandmother they no longer rent, that had bought a farm, that had bought the farm. He wondered, that had bought the orchard. Uh, Such a cliche thing, but I don't know. He wondered what they would say to their grandson if they knew he was selling their orchards, their dream to start a family, that they could settle down. That had bought the land. He wondered what they would say to their grandson if they knew he was selling their orchards. They could settle down. He wondered what they would say to their grandson if they knew he was selling their orchards for a clean 10 million. He blushed. They'd raised him and his parents here. They'd fought to keep the land. He and his sister had the best childhood they could wish for because his grandfather had saved enough for the orchard. Even now, he lived in a snug spot between the pages of an old photo album because of them. He closed his eyes and imagined his family's voices filling the now empty hallways with conversation and laughter, those years that did everything together. Pick up the pen and sign for Flo. Which I don't know which sign away. Pick up the pen and sign. Oh, it's back up here. Oh, only need to pick up the pen and sign. Oh yeah, that's the right edit. It just took me a while to match. No, that's absolutely right. He only needed to pick up the pen and sign. Yep. Cool. Okay, so they raised him and they fought him in land. He and his sister had the best childhood they could wish for because his grandfather had saved enough for the orchard. Even now, he lived in a snug spot between the pages of an old photo album because of them. He closed his eyes and imagined his family. He imagined his family's voices, filling the now empty hallways with conversation and laughter. Those years, they did everything together: fishing, movies, stargazing, everything. But like the dandelion, it only took like a dandelion, it took a puff of wind to scatter the family to the four corners. Charles was a stem that stayed behind, marking that the beating heart of a family had thrived there once. And may again. But he was getting older. An urge in his gut told him to pull one of his favorite books from its shelf and read it until he forgot the whole thing. But the broker's sharp tone and the contract's crisp, formal print took the energy from his legs. He supposed he must have read everything in that house twice over, anyways. He bit his lip in frustration. His family had left. Had moved to period. His brothers and sisters had moved to New York and San Francisco, seeking real jobs, and had been the only one stupid enough to keep the farm. The screen door rattled in the wind. The breeze carried the scent of rain inside, but Charlie, where did that come? Charles knew too many years of drought to hope. Had known. Oh. An intentional hard stop. The scripture in front of family adds flow. Family left. His brothers and sisters took the train to New York. Flew to New York and San Francisco, so you can got real jobs. He had been the only one stupid enough to keep the farm. Screen door rattling wind. Family. Oh, thank you. I think it's that one. His family to the Four Corners. His family there once. They flew. Oops. First family. I hope that was the right family. I was like, is it which one? The one problem with track changes, which is why I'm going to accept all the changes and do one last read through, is that if you do a lot of edits, it just turns into this red blob of evil, which is really hard to read. I used to do these for legal docs a lot, so like it kind of gets. Oh, thanks, Skittles. Oh, much appreciated, man. Well, writing is editing, my friend. Writing is editing. So always always want to keep on doing these big revisions. So you want to make the manuscript as bloody as possible, is what someone always says. Yeah, he'd been the only one stupid enough to keep the farm. The screen door rattled in the wind. The breeze carried the scent of rain inside, but Charles knew too many years of drought to hope. The thought itself annoyed him. He swore aloud, snatched a pen from the can, knocking it over, and signed the contract. Over a dozen places needed to be signed or initialed. He plowed through, page after page, trying, shame, trying to ignore the seeking feeling of loss twisting his gut. He finished the last line. Blood of Eva! Oh! Those red blobs, though. It's always a good sign, the red blobs, but policy renewal, yes. More documents. Speaking of documents to sign, people are emailing me them. Knew too many years of drought to hope. The thought itself annoyed him. He swore aloud, snatched a pin from the can, knocking it over, and signed the contract. Over a dozen places in the okay, comma, comma. Ignored the sinking feeling. I don't know if you've ever seen the South Park where they do like, write book, book, question, question, profit. House in Florida. Hashtag Boca Raton, bro. Okay, trying to ignore the seeking feeling of loss twisting his gut. He finished the last line with a scribble, barely passable as a signature. He stood up rapidly. His chair slapped against the bookshelf. Period. I don't want to make these, so making these broken sentences gives it a bit more of a punctuated feel. His chair slapped against the bookshelf behind him. Oh, why is it giving me... Ah. Ooh, there it is. His chair slapped against the bookshelf behind him. Nah, I think that last one is fine. Oops, 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 oops. And he marched. His chair slapped against the bookshelf as he... Oops, that's what I meant. As he marched out of the swing screen door. The last line tied together. How about he came across a distinct form mentioned above instead of the last line? That's good. That's good. Being more specific, I think that's absolutely right. He plowed through page after page. He signed the final line of the term sheet with a scribble barely passable as his signature. He stood up rapidly. His chair slapped against the bookshelf behind him as he marched out of the swaying screen door. The wind turned the contract's pages on the table as he strode. Because I have marched as he walked. I kind of... Where is that? It seems that that's jarring. His chair slapped against the bookshelf behind him as he marched out of the swaying screen door. As he marched through. As he marched through. As he pushed open the swaying screen door and marched outside. Clarity, clarity, clarity. As he pushed open the swinging screen door and marched outside. The wind turned the contract's pages on the table behind him as he continued past his porch and onto the dirt driveway where he and the broker had talked. The reds of the setting sun shone clear through the sky. Do you plan on publishing ever? Do you like fiction? I love fiction. I actually do plan on publishing. This is actually more of a short story that was kind of more for fun that I'm editing. But I'm actually working on a. I actually have it here. Ironically enough, working on a sci-fi novel, which hopefully will be the question marks to profit. I'm just kidding. I actually, making much money is not the most important thing. I would rather just make enough so I could support myself with writing one day. But working on a sci-fi novel as more of the primary project, and this, is more just good practice, a lot of fun, and editing. I think it's always good to edit. Like this is something I wrote 5 years ago, and I hadn't even looked at it since 4.5 years ago. So I kind of wanted to edit it fresh as if it was completely foreign, just to kind of get a picture, because it kind of like you see these same issues. Like I still see some of these issues in my writing now, which is the novel. Well, you're sold. Sold to Skittles 2021. But yeah, it's a fun sci-fi book, so I'm pretty excited about that as well. Raheem the Broker had started. Tie back. I like that. Deal. Also deal. Yeah, you guys definitely just for being awesome, awesome writing. Thank you for the follow, Skittles. By the way, feel free to join us again. I'm sure we'll be doing probably. I think Foxtastic, who is one of our other awesome, the Foxy Lady. I mean, one of our other awesome editors. So she also edits work, and people can submit work. Um, yeah, please. If you have anything you've written, so normally in this channel, people will submit, because I used to do a lot of editing professionally. So normally, I say, hey, send over stuff you want me to edit. Um, and I'm more than happy to kind of do that. And kind of using the same techniques here, like so saying, hey, look, like, is this scene flowing? How do you want to rearrange the prose to kind of ramp up the drama? Stuff like that. So, oof. Send in what you have. We'll do an edit for you. Sold. Yeah, I know. She was on our stream last night for the so we actually streamed a Dresden Files. Ah, fear not, fear not. Age doesn't matter for good writing, Skittles. Fear not. You can be. I mean, I think who was it? The guy who wrote Aragorn or whatever, that bestseller was 16. What is it called? Aragon, right? This thing. Yeah, and he got a movie made out of it. I'll find the Wikipedia here. Yeah. So Justin Files is not editing. Well, if you have anything, feel free to send it in. We've done even more development edits, which is like talking through the ideas. Dresden Files is fun though. He had his father's dream of editors go. He had Indeed, indeed. We can work in editing into the Dresden Files RPG. I'm the game master, so I can kind of do whatever, right? I think the plot for most of my fans. Nice. That's awesome. I think we're so don't quote me on this, but I think Foxy Lady and I are gonna try to do an edit tomorrow. So I'm gonna be driving up because she lives a little ways away. She lives about 45 minutes north. So I'm gonna try to drive over and happy trees, pepper trees. So I'll try to drive over and Foxy will will definitely help out. Spyro. But yeah. So so indeed. So Skittles, feel free to send in anything you have. It's a pretty informal editing process, as you can tell from even this one, where it's just more talking through, like, hey, what's working, what's not, and why. And usually, our goal, at least my goal, is to try to say, hey, what kind of like general takeaways can we learn about writing by editing, an individual piece of writing. So those are kind of the name of the game. So even if you say, hey, no, no. Yeah, I think everyone has a valid valid opinion on the work, right? Everyone's a reader. Everyone can like know how the work makes them feel, what they like. Ah, my good friend, the level 99 banana. Well, so today we're actually doing our rock on. So today we're actually doing our more traditional non-Dresden Files edit, which is gonna be, this is a short story about it's kind of a more typical, like, kind of like a take on an old theme of like the farmer selling his property. So like that was kind of like a theme that I thought was always really interesting. So I wanted to try to take a swing at my take on it. So that was this. I wrote it, 4 years ago, and so now I'm editing it. So no one, there hasn't been too many submissions from the Twitch verse. So feel free to send in your work. I will be happy to edit it. And I bet you, Skittles, it'll be a good edit. But I mean, look at this. So this is the actual novel I'm writing and editing as well. But you can see how much is edited. Oh, whoops. Or if it doesn't swing open. I don't know if that's in focus or if it's even visible. But like the whole page is practically black and red. Black and red with edits because, it comes down to it. Nothing's perfect on the first draft. Just human. The world ain't perfect. Whatever you write's not gonna be perfect the first time. Whatever I write's not gonna be perfect the first time. So you just have to just go through draft after draft, keep making it better. And the best writers are usually good editors. All right, but I digress. So I'll continue here. So right over to where he starts signing the contract and just kind of going back. So right now the farmer has, even though he knows he's kind of selling out his family and his home, and I'm pouring water all over myself. YOLO. I just gotta like do it like that. So even though he knows he's selling his family his home, he's frustrated that he hasn't been able to make the farm work, and because of this drought. And then he goes ahead and signed. Over a dozen places needed to be initialed or signed. He swore aloud, snatched a pin from the can, knocking it over, and signed the contract. Over a dozen places needed to be initialed or signed. He plowed through, page after page, trying to ignore. Trying to ignore the sinking feeling of loss twisting his gut. He signed the final line of the term sheet, with his scribble barely passable as a signature. He stood up rapidly. His chair slapped against the bookshelf behind him as he pushed open the swaying screen door and marched outside. The wind turned the contract's pages on the table behind him as he continued past his porch and onto the driveway where he and the broker had started talking. And that was Judy Dawn's note from earlier. So let me know if I got that note right, Judy, with the started talking. The reds of the setting sun shone clear through the sky. The pollution of the city held it unobscured. I have to clarify that. By the pollution of the city. The wind for For now, the wind. For now, comma, the wind held that black cloud. That black cloud at bay. That sounds kind of weird. Hold on, that does sound kind of weird. His chair slammed against the bookshelf. His chair slammed against the bookshelf behind him. Oh, yeah. His chair slammed. I think that's more, it's more of like an impact. I think that's great. No worries, man. Solid. I think it's really it's just kind of the sound choice you want, right? Skittles. So usually it's like, hey, what are you kind of looking for? Slapping is more of like, and slammed is more deep, which I think probably actually makes more sense for a chair. So, yeah, I think that's a super solid note. You put on a Soviet, so fear not, keep it coming. Um, easy in the caps, and then have that would be cool. You could put in a communist spin. I should. Well, one thing too, Arcana, is a few people in the past have done a writing challenge with us with this stream, and then I've edited like well, so like we all do like, hey, see what like write a short flash fiction in 2 hours, you know, and then so you write a short fiction in 2 hours, and then we send them around, and everybody kind of takes a look, and just it's kind of a fun thing. So Judy Dawn actually had the awesome idea of doing it for the holidays. I haven't had a chance to reply back to the message, but I was like, oh yeah, like we did one for Halloween 2 months ago, 1 month ago, and yeah, so I probably will put out the idea of doing a fun flash fiction. So I don't know if you're a follower, but I will send it out to everybody. Or sorry, I think Skittles is a follower, but anybody else that wants to, I'll send it out to everybody and just be like, hey, if you're interested, I'll just kind of message you what the prompt is, and then I usually say, hey, give yourself 2 hours, try your best to write something, and then send it in, and then we all kind of can, or don't send it in if you want to be, if you just want to keep your writing to yourself. Then we all can kind of have something fun to like talk about and write together. So that was, I think, credit of the idea goes to Judy Dawn, and yeah, if you guys want, we can kind of do those cool, we can kind of do a fun project together, which would be cool. You turn and paste on the soft carpet. For now, the northern wind held that black cloud at bay. He turned and paced on the soft carpet of grass between his house and the orange grove, off to his right. Images of him and his sister playing tag washed over his mind, and the sweet scent of freshly cut grass that always followed his father's lawnmower bit his nostrils. Bit is a bit weird. What's a better word there? Bit his nostrils. Stung is a bit more, I don't know. Akonta. Silent Willow's in. Okay, cool. Silent Willow's down. Akonta. 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 Probably won't send it. Sweet. Well, the sending aspect is not a requirement of the document. So Akonta. Huh. It's Hawaiian. Nice. I'm gonna Google that. I'm trying to like piece together what that means. Oops. Yeah, Silent Willow did an awesome one last time about like kind of an Iron Maiden and like this cool like it was a Halloween, so it was obviously like, very scary. Judy did one in her steampunk world, and I think another guy, Moocher, did one about like a haunting that this like haunter that went in and like got people's kids. So it was all of them were really awesome, scary short stories. It was like a scary theme. So maybe like a theme or something we can do around like Christmas, family, whatever you guys think. Feel free to throw on a few ideas if there's some cool like themes we should do for um, the holiday 2 hour writing flash fiction thing. And his sister playing tag watched over his mind. The sweet scent of freshly cut grass bit his nostrils. He remembered his father sitting on the porch steps reading the Iliad aloud to the family, adding twists of his own when he took the fancy and took the fan. Just space that out. I don't need to however. That's pretty obvious. Oops. I'm a bit behind on my comments. Sorry. Can you move a chat to the right? Yes, I can. If you guys are having trouble seeing, I was worried about that. So move a chat to the right. I'm actually gonna see. Let me know if this doesn't bother you. I thought I was gonna use comments more, so I can actually put it up here, and then I can go like this. Beep. Yay. That's more like proportional, right? Okay. That works, right? Cool. If not, holla. Sorry, sometimes if I like my word kind of like jumps in front of the chat window, so sometimes I don't see all the chats. So if I have like a minute delay between like something, it's nothing bad. That's all I could see in the ocean that surrounded him. Huh. Oh, you should ask Moocher to send it over. It's really good, Judy. When wrong, he thought. Maybe it's the karma for his past actions. Maybe it's the destiny for all he knew. Oh, I like this. It's good. Me gusta. You, Arcana 5, you got some writing skills, man. You gotta to bust it out, man. If you've written something, again, feel free to send it into Final Boss Editing, and he gives you the shattered pieces of his home. Okay, get some rest, Judy. Take care. It was fun hanging out. It's funny that you're writing a short here about the power of memory. I just finished one the other day. Ah, nice. That's awesome. This was actually, ironically, this was something because one of the things that I found that helps my writing a lot is, and this is maybe something if you guys are, all big writers, is if because I wrote this like 4 years ago and I hadn't looked at it since. And then when you go back and look at it again, you don't remember anything. It feels like you're reading something a stranger wrote, and it's like so interesting because like I see a lot more of these thematic like issues with my writing, and stuff like hey, like it's a little bit too abstract. I'm not bringing as much conflict in here as I probably should if I really want the story to really like pop. So those are the types of things where I'm like, oh man, like these are kind of some thematic issues that I still have to look out for, at least in my opinion. So these are kind of the fun things. So like I don't know, one thing I would kind of challenge you guys, and you can send it into me. I'd love to edit it too. Is like if you've written something a few years back, something you maybe like it's usually like a year is kind of when you forget. Feel free to send it in. I'd love to edit it. I'm behind on the comment. A new force equation, dude. That's awesome. Send it in. Um. Yeah, I was just saying, man. You definitely have the writing chops. That's awesome. When do you think this book? This one probably not for some time. It's a first draft. So usually it takes at least three drafts, and the first draft took me from start to finish 9 months. So I'm probably gonna have at least another 18 months, not counting the time between drafts. And I'm taking at least like 2 or 3 months between drafts. Oh, that sucks. I do. I don't do or. That's something I can't. I don't do apostrophe or. Yeah, the apostrophes take some getting used to. It's just. Um. Oh, nice. Okay. Well, if you fax it in, I mean, we're pretty low key. I think I'm happy to do a PDF if you do that. If not, no worries. One of the best pieces of writing advice, or one of the things a good writer I know does when I'm lazy and I don't do this, though it is really good advice, is he writes out his whole story by hand first, and then he transcribes it into computer or like into doc later, and usually it's better quality because you're kind of doing a mental edit as you're transcribing it. So he's a really good writer and he does that, so it's probably not a bad thing to some degree, and it's on paper in the short term while your poor PC is on the fritz. Cool. Awesome. Feel free to like, I wish there was a way to like beep me or something like through the headphones if comment comes, but sometimes I tab out and I don't know what anybody's saying. He pictured the stockbroker piloting a wrecking ball across his porch. And then I think you had a good suggestion. Um, it was up here. Yeah, you could like see piloting a wrecking ball. Shattering his porch. He shuddered. No, that's already implied. Yep. On paper, whisper would not work. I don't know. I'm actually kind of a noob. I'm kind of a noob with Twitch and how it works. So I kind of just am very gotta go. Good luck, Foxy Lady, on your test. We updated the whispering. Paper whisper not work. You got this. Good luck, Foxy Lady. He could see the pictures of his A plus indeed. His memories being swept away to make room for development with cookie cutter houses. He imagined all the quarter acre yards with stiff crabgrass and cemented edges, uprooting the swaying branches of his orange trees. Houses toting stoic porches and white stucco pillars replaced the wooden floorboards of his wraparound porch and his grandfather's rocking chair. Entry rooms, two-car garages, and dining sets took the place of nooks, crannies, and broom closets he haunted as a kid. His home had become an entire neighborhood. He struggled to imagine the barn and back converted into a swimming pool. With a laugh at how sentimental he'd grown, Charles kicked a rock off his small lawn and tromped up the steps to his porch. The screen door swung lazily at his side as he settled down in his grandfather's rocking chair and stared out at his land, and let the chair's movement ease his mind. Hector Odysseus, or another hero from his books, would never sell his home for quick cash, even if there was a drought. And money was short. Oops, oops, oops. My tab is going bananas. Get some rest. Take it easy, Arcana 5. The grandfather probably passed away, to answer your questions. Feel free to hang out again anytime, Arcana. And don't, I mean, I would never say you're a noob at writing, Skittles. One of the things you see a lot, especially in the workplace, is that usually your attitude about how, like where you tell yourself, like if you're like, oh, I suck at basketball, you're usually going to be more likely to be worse at basketball because your brain kind of searches for that confirmation. So you're harder on yourself when you lose, and you're like, I knew I would have lost. I suck. But so don't worry, you're probably pretty good at writing. And always, if you like writing, if you want to get better at it, the all you got to do is practice. It's just like any other skill. It's just like basketball, honestly. Like you just, hey, like how do you get good at basketball? You go shoot free throws. You go get a coach. You get someone to help. Like um, it's the same. Like basketball's an art, man. Like those guys are absolutely amazing athletes that are out there in the pros and stuff. And like, yeah, if you want to, be Michael Jordan, like it comes down to like you ask him like how much that guy practiced and how hard he worked, and Michael Jordan will tell you he worked incredibly hard, and yeah, he did have natural talent, which you probably have some, but like at the end of the day, it's always the hours you put in, and the effort and like the coaching makes a huge difference from my experience. So fear not. Indeed. And they knocked his own chair. Cool. Awesome. So the way I always say it, Skittles, is even if a suggestion may not work in the draft, when someone is saying, "Hey, like you should change this," it usually means that area just needs a little bit of work because it's not clear, right? Like, so if you were like, "Hey, like what exactly is happening," then it usually just means like, "Hey, maybe that specific suggestion doesn't fit or whatever," and that's nothing. That's never bad. It's just more like, "Hey, like this is a part of the story that I'm gonna need to like." Even when I give people edits, which I do live on the channel a lot, even when I'm giving people edits, a lot of it's more like, "Hey, like this part didn't work for me," or like I didn't really know what you were trying to do, and I'll give suggestions, but for me, I'm never too worried about it. I'm like, hey, like this is what I think will maybe fix it, and hopefully it's just usually to get the writer kind of at least a step in the right direction, because it's you know I always like to whenever I'm giving edits to someone like say, hey, like try this out. So don't worry, man. Like there's no requirement for perfection in writing. Yeah. Okay, cool. I think you guys are actually reading a little bit ahead, so I'm gonna catch up here. With the left of that settlement, kicked the rock of a small lawn top that set the stream door swung lazily at his side as he settled down in his grandfather's rocking chair, stared out at his land, and let the chair's movement ease his mind. Settled down. Hector Odysseus would never sell his home for quick cash, but I was right. Charles needed the money, and the drought looked like it was here to stay. He didn't know how many seasons he could last with the bad weather, but it sure wouldn't be many. He pictured himself lounging in a stylish Santa Monica apartment, and he laughed so hard he nearly tipped over. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. Tip just sounds something tiny to me. Uh, yeah. No worries, man. I'm no J.K. Rowling, man. Well, me neither. I'm no J.K. Rowling, and I'm much older than 16, so don't worry, dude. Like that's part of the fun is just not. But I mean, like the one thing you shouldn't expect is even J.K. Rowling probably edits her writing, and she probably gives good and bad suggestions when she's doing it, and keeps some ideas and throws them out. So like the one thing I would say is like don't expect yourself to be perfect when you're 16 or when you're, you know, 36. Like it's all the same. Like and you know, it's just always work. The one thing that I've at least learned is like it's always the amount of work you put in. It's like, okay, I'm gonna get work, I'm gonna get advice, I'm gonna read books on writing. Like I have one like legitimately always like close. Um, and you know that's what makes you better. So don't worry, man. Like I learn as much from my mistakes as I do from my successes. He didn't know how many more seasons he could last in the bad weather, but assured me many. He pictured himself finding a Santa Monica apartment, and he laughed so hard he nearly fell out of the rocking chair. Rocking chair. He weathered. He had weathered tough times in the past. They had grown older since then. That's a bit obvious. You'd want to either make that ironic, but that was years ago. Time had faded his sharp, but since then, I would just do. So that's yeah. So I would almost I'm taking that instead of because grown older is telling, right? So it's like he grew older. Well, yeah. What does that look like? So then now that's actually more like he'd weathered tough times in the past. I probably should show that. Um, Gosh, yeah. This is showing and not telling is like one of the toughest things for writing. But don't take that suggestion to like it. So I actually agree with that grammar suggestion, but probably my goal, I probably even need to change the weathered one because I'm saying had weathered tough times in the past. What did that mean? You know, had like had lived and survived drought. Um, I'm gonna Google orange pest. Um, it's at five droughts. Hmm. Oh, the joy of editing, indeed. How's it going, Zons? So what I'm trying to do in this sense is saying, okay, so I say had weathered tough times before, but I want to make it more visual, more like a tangible thing. Um, for a drought. But since then, time had faded his sharp blue eyes to gray, and his strong shoulders, which used to fill out his flannel jacket, narrowed to those of a coat hanger. Okay, that's a little bit more visual. So I normally edit other people's work, but I actually have an open queue, so bam. So feel free to send it in. So this is actually something I wrote 4 years ago. One of the people who kind of has coached me in writing in the past, and like talked to me. He's like, hey, find something that you've written a long time ago and edit it again with, because usually your perspective resets. Um, your perspective resets after even a year, but after 4 years, this is kind of like seeing something completely foreign, which has been kind of fun for me. But I can kind of see the things that I struggled with in the past when I wrote this are kind of similar to what I encounter now in my writing. So it's been kind of a fun process to see, okay, like how do I make this story? Where are parts of the story struggling? Like there's not enough conflict in certain areas, stuff like that. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting. This is a more quiet story, so I do a lot more like action adventure stuff now. But it's still kind of good to see like, hey, you kind of still need conflict in slower paced stories, but it's more like character conflict, which is always something I've had challenges with. So, yeah, it's been a fun process, and hopefully I'm gonna accept all these changes in a second, and then and just read through it aloud again before I close up and do some final spot fixes. And then yeah, we'll kind of see what you guys think. So that'll probably be I'm at the very last page, so I'll probably do grab a glass of water because my throat is like melting, and then go from there. Since then, time and faded sharp blue eyes to gray. Okay, the hilltops cut the sun's dim orb in half as the afternoon waxed on. Wind picked up, heightening the smell of earth and rain as it fluttered the broker's contract on the kitchen table. He leaned back and stared at the dimming sky. Smell of earth and rain. Hmm. The wind picked up, comma, but I still don't know if that's the best sentence structure. Yeah, very, very true. Yeah, this is I'm actually kind of surprised. I think in the past I had in when I wrote this, like I had focused a lot more on imagery, which I don't do now, which is actually kind of a bit like, oh, like I really don't drill down and like think of vivid images and like good comparisons, and like I think I almost did it too much in the past, like where it kind of distracted from the story, which I think is like one of the things. If we go over the edits, you'll see that I pared a lot of those down. But the ones that I kept, I was like, oh, like I actually kind of like that, and I'm actually kind of sad I don't do that as much in my more recent stories I've written. Um, yeah, the hilltops cut the sun's dim orb in half. The wind picked up. The afternoon waxed on. Hmm. Yeah, it is kind of weird. Like I think at least when because I think I wrote this one originally because I think I edited it a little bit afterwards, but like I initially wrote this when I was like, still in like college. It's true, true. Um, they always need work. It's every story is kind of crap at first, but I kind of definitely see it's like, oh hey, like there's something good about it though. Like it's that trade-off. Like you kind of go for more of a structured story long term. You want to build story structure. You want to have efficient scenes, efficient dialogue. But I sometimes, I think now I'm like looking at my novel over here, which is my definitely the most recent thing I've written. Um, and I'm like, oh, do I really drill in on the images as well as I used to? And I probably don't. Another storm in the sky. Another flew into the sky. Um, Oh, I see. It's perfect. I was like, what are you referring to? Nice. You guys are awesome, and you're a few pages ahead of me here. I kind of still want to shore this bit up, but or a few paragraphs. So I will address that note for sure once I get an inch further. The wind picked up, hiding the smell of earth and rain. Okay, the smell of rain rose as the wind picked up. Charles ignored it. The rain wasn't coming. And the broker's contract flutter on the kitchen table. I'm just gonna do this. Charles leaned back and stared at the dim sky above. Ooh, hello. How many novels have you finished? So I don't know if I have too many. So in the past, I primarily worked on screenplays. I really like screenplays because I very structure oriented, very good systems, and I'm more of a systems person in general. So this is actually my first novel. I wrote a novel a long time ago when I was younger, um, but this is my first kind of like original, like actually like 120,000 words, like a more like substantial work. Um, so yeah, so this is kind of the first big novel, but I have done a few screenplays before, which are a lot of fun and a really, I think, a really accessible way to get into writing, because you can kind of have like a bigger story, but it's not like that many words. Exactly, but you have to be very structure oriented because if you do find yourself like having trouble rambling or kind of deviating, screenplays are great because they force you to be structured. So that's probably why my novel doesn't have this kind of fluid writing that this work does before I wrote screenplays. So like with the thing I liked about screenplays, it held me accountable as a writer to prioritize the story and prioritize the character development of all things, which is what's the job. So like hey, how do I prioritize the storytelling? How do I prioritize like the flow and actions and rise and fall of the plot? How do I prioritize who the characters are and who they're becoming? Because and so I think it's helped me a lot in the novels, even though it's kind of tough. The wind scooped the scent. Oh, I like that. I like that. It makes it a little bit more visceral. Maybe it's like, um, yeah. Of try to ignore it. Charles had to ignore it, reminding himself that every forecast said drought. Said that every forecast. Every forecast. Beacon inhale deeply. The screen door snapped again in the breeze. And the broker's trying to flutter on the kitchen table. Charles leaned back and stared in the dimming sky above. In a flash, a star sprung into view. The rocking chair swung forward as Charles moved to get a better view of the sky. His jaw tight with expectation. Another snapped into the sky. After it, two more. With a sigh of happiness, you never want to use things like beauty and happiness. So what I did there was okay. Oh, there we go. Here's some stuff. Sorry if I kind of have a pause between comments. Got the structure from writing short stories with a certain word count. My structure. Yeah. Hey, well, Zonts, if you ever want, man, feel free to. I think I've posted it a few times, but feel free to send me a story if you want me to edit it. On Twitch. I would, or even if it's like the first like 20 pages or something of a novel. That's what we usually do for screenplays. I'll usually read the first 20 pages of a screenplay, talk, because usually a lot of the structural issues are usually pretty apparent earlier in the story. Because like the bad habits you have in the beginning of the story are usually the same bad habits you have at the beginning of the story, at least for me, whenever I'm writing screenplays. But yeah, so feel free to send over one of your novels. I would love to help edit it, or at least do like the first bit for you. So yeah, but yeah, structure is hard, man. The one of the books that I found that helps a lot is Save the Cat by Blake Snyder. Oops, not Dave the Cat, which would be cool. This is he's probably more, so there's kind of the trains of thought of, very structure oriented versus very, free flow writing. He's extremely structure oriented. So, I like that book a lot because it kind of is, at least shows you that logical extreme of structure. And his method and process is very good, like doing the, beat sheet, the, note card outline, and the treatment is very good. Oh, that was supposed to be deal. um, Another phone to the sky. No worries. Another phone to the sky. Another step to the sky. Yeah. Actually, I like snap. So I may stick with that word choice, and the one reason is I'm not necessarily because it's a bad note, because we actually it's referenced earlier in the story, and you guys may see this if it's kind of getting late, so I may actually not do the whole go through again, or I'll do it really fast and I won't spend too much time editing. Maybe I'll just do it really fast. I'm a bit self-indulgent like that. Another snap in the sky. After it, two more. He stretched back in his chair and watched the rest appear as the sun dipped below the western mountains. The rain crescendoed, and he heard. Don't want that qualifier. And he heard it. Brush the signed contract off the table. And. The house glowed. Glowed orange and gold in the dimming light. Charles propped his feet. Oops, I'm behind. Ah! Dun 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 dun. Deals as he had many novels published. I have one of Blake's books. Wasn't Save the Cat, but something else. Awesome. No self-published. You've done okay. Had better luck with short stories appearing on podcasts. Nice. Oops. How often do I do this? I lost connection. I'm 3 times. Oh, well, Lord of the Rings is awesome. If you want, one of my favorite stories by Tolkien is a short story he wrote while while he was worried that he wasn't going to be able to finish Lord of the Rings before he died. So Tolkien was kind of wrestling with the fact that, like, hey, I've written my magnum opus, but I may die before I finish it. So it was this amazing story. It's called Leaf by. It's kind of a weird name. Leaf by Niggle, but it is an amazing piece of fiction. I'm sure it's online somewhere. Most of those are in the open source, but and that's by Tolkien, obviously. But that's an amazing short story by him. So yeah, maybe that's one of the ones we'll read if we do actually like more of like the reading and interpretation bit that a few people voted for. Charles propped his feet. Charles did his feet and I don't want too much. Propped his feet up on the porch rail, and his eyes gleamed a clear blue. For a moment. Final gust opened the screen door, releasing the fluttering pages of the contract. Oops. Come on, man, my grammar. Shame, shame, young Jeff. Leaf by Giggle. And his eyes glowed a brighter blue. Oh, that's probably true. A brighter blue. His eyes gleamed a clear blue. His eyes glowed a brighter blue for a moment. Yeah, it works. I like it. Me gusta. His eyes glowed a brighter blue for a moment. Final gust opened the screen door. The fluttering pages of the contract rolled across the porch. Charles didn't move. The wind picked up again, and the documents rolled the rest of their way. off the porch onto the lawn. Charles took a deep breath, inhaling the tang the oranges left in the air and the coy suggestion of moisture the wind carried. He sat calmly. Okay, that's that. Commas are your friend, man. You can never overuse them. Very true. It's true. I always though I honestly I always think a bloody manuscript is the best, because you have progress. The thing that's worse is you have a document that you don't know how to fix. Like the bloody manuscript for me, or like the red, a lot of red markings, usually means that like, hey, there's hope. Like um, I think I get more concerned if there's like nothing I can think of to fix it. That stresses me out. Hashtag worth, sir. Pac-Man 2 for some reason. I'm thinking I was getting inspired. Oh, dude, good games. I honestly think, video games are probably going to be one of or they already kind of are, one of the next big storytelling forms. Just because, that's what everybody does. Like everyone plays video games, and some of the best games like Final Fantasy VII like have these amazing stories. I think I mean too scripted. Fiction can do harm. I think it's a balance. Like over describing because you kind of want to like balance things out with the reader. But I'm gonna be right back. I'm gonna top off my water. Okie dokie. So yeah, same too. Same here. The comma pauses is a real thing. Oh well, thank you for the follow, Zonce. I think that's how to say it. Much obliged, my friend. And never hesitate to send over any short stories, even if they're already published, if long as that's allowed or whatever, by your publisher. I love editing, and I would do it even if you say, hey, this is already pretty solid. Even if it's like a final work, solving challenges in fiction is always such an intriguing thing. Game stories are getting better, yeah. But yeah, there are some. I'm trying to think of the really good ones. A lot of the RPGs. So a lot of people, excuse me, a lot of people who are like screenwriters are being hired. Yeah, Halo is really good. But if you look on Blizzard's job description, for example, for their writers, they're pulling people who are doing TV shows. They're pulling these episodic writers. Yeah, it's interesting. Oh, well, I'm glad to hear. Okay. It's kind of weird when you're doing it because I'm like, man, this must kind of get boring. But as long as you guys are hanging out and having fun, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's just, um, yeah, it's like I think that's like just a testament to how much depth there is in writing. Just because, like, even if it's not, very like good writing, but like I think it's just like it's always like it's such like a challenging puzzle, at least to me, where it's like, okay, how do I piece this together? How do I piece this together? How do I, make it fit? And I work as an analyst at my day job, or one of my kind of duties. So it's probably just my analyst nature that just finds writing this so addicting because I'm just like, how do I solve this? How do I make this equation work? But anyways, I base. Yeah, it's mostly diagonal based and visuals and artists in the background. Yeah, absolutely. And they're very similar. Like screenplay versus video game is similar, but they're also it's interesting because you see a lot of these guys are doing subscription models in video games now. So even I bet you if you're a periodic, so it sounds like you're doing like a periodic novel, but you see these people that have this subscription business model for their games are looking for these people who can build TV shows and narrative that has a subscription, like that has a continuing kind of like element to it. So that's like a really interesting thing too that they're pulling more from less feature film writing and more from like these episodic TV show type things. More just my own nerd because I used to do a lot more film stuff before I came to San Francisco and did this whole startup shebang, which has been a blast. But yeah, that was definitely much more the focus. But anywho, what I'll do kind of now is I'm going to kind of go through and just do a quick, fast read through. You guys are probably tired, and I probably have to get to bed soon. So I'm going to go quick. It wasn't long ago when you could see the stars turn on like light bulbs out here, Charles Dalton said as he pressed his knuckles out from his jeans pockets, forming little blue hills. He stared at the afternoon sky. The setting sun peeked over the waving tops of his orange trees. He let his eyes drift over the rustling leaves, searching for signs of fruit, but the only... Did I say rustling already? Okay, but the only orange in sight was the sun. Finally, he turned to the broker and continued. The sun used to dive into the west, into my orchard, and the stars would just pop up, like dust settling from Apollo's chariot. You know what that is, right? After bringing the horses in, I'd stand next to the grove there, look down the road at the coastal mountains over yonder. Too long. Too long. I stand at the grove there and look down the road at the coast. Look down the road. Well, Mr. Dalton, imagine what the tenants of the new development will think when they witness this phenomenon for themselves, Robert the broker said as he straightened his Snoopy tie, rubbed some dust off his polished shoes, and waved vaguely at Charles's land. Charles paused and looked across his open land. Land, used too closely together. His open fields. Hmm. The incandescent glow of Los Angeles' city lights rose between the southern foothills. Gritting his teeth, Charles turned away and said, "They ain't gonna see it because it's gone, Bob. That's my point. City's too close." He nodded towards the smoldering city light. Too many periods. Problem with track changes. You can never tell. It looks It looks like the sun just before it comes up around 4 in the morning, but it never rises. It just sits there and festers. So there are no stars to miss, Mr. Dalton. And remember, your proximity to Los Angeles is the reason you're receiving such a generous offer from my client. Besides, with the drought, I can't imagine you'll have much choice but to take the offer, Robert said again as he raised his eyebrows at Charles, who stood a foot taller than him. Okay, I'm going to check the comments. Whoops. Whew. Mostly dialogue based. Okay, yeah, I've been doing pretty well with the adventure games such as Telltale Games. Yeah, Telltale Games is awesome. Life is Strange. Adventure games do really well in the episodic business. Indeed, indeed. I feel like it was just me by myself alone in the wilderness, freezing. It was not. I remember wrong. There was another. That's awesome. That's great, man. Well, the goal is that's a good start. There's actually a lot of really cool if you like kind of like the Man versus Wild, like wilderness fiction, and I'm kind of taking a break between pages, so I'm gonna like do a page, read through comments, do a page. But if you like wilderness fiction, there is some really good. Oh my God, there's one about a man and his dog. Oh, I thought it was amazing. I read it a long time ago, but those are some fun stuff. I'm sure there's some like good. I'm sure if you just Google it, but like I remember I've read a few like two or three. It's not Most Dangerous Game, but there's like two or three like really kick at or kick butt. Sorry, pardon my France. But some really amazing wilderness fiction stories. They're like man versus like nature, which is like kind of this eternal conflict. It seems. Okay. I digress. I've weathered worse droughts, Charles replied, looking down at the abundance of gel the broker used to comb his black hair. Charles ran his fingers through his own loose gray hair with a kind of relief. Ignoring Charles. I've weathered worse droughts. Ignoring Charles, the broker set his slim briefcase on the hood of his candy apple red Porsche and rummaged through its contents. He drew out a pile of papers and shoved them into Charles's arms. The term sheet is a one-time offer. I need it signed and on my desk by Monday. This term sheet and the this term sheet and the commission are a one-time offer. I need it signed on my desk. I need them signed and on my desk by Monday. If you want to take advantage of this deal, it's the highest it'll ever be. You know, I've lived here most of my life. Don't suppose y'all would let me stay and just build around my house, Charles replied, rolling up the papers and using them to point at the stocky building behind him. For safety reasons, we couldn't allow it. Besides, oops, why is that not? Besides, Robert. For safety reasons, he's replied a lot. Robert said. For safety reasons, we couldn't allow it. Besides, we're well aware of your finances or lack thereof. Rolling up paper. Ooh. Why starve here when you could sell this dry land and buy condos in downtown Santa Monica with a very healthy nest egg to spare? Charles's tall, thin frame hunched in bewilderment as he stared at his worn. Charles's tall, thin frame hunched in bewilderment as he stared at his own. You don't think an old farmer like me could live in a place like that, do you? He rubbed his unshaven chin and gave Bob a quizzical smile. Nowadays, there ain't too many places left for us folks. For folks like me. Besides, I swear they are as fresher than usual tonight. Buy a ranch in Montana, Robert replied, his beady eyes narrowing as the last remnants of his positive veneer faded. You could quadruple your acreage and quadruple your revenues. You know what that is, right? You know what those are, right? Credit Blue revenue. Singular. You know what? That is right. We're not going to offer you a price this generous again, Mr. Dalton. My client is aware that if the drought continues, you will hardly have enough to eat, and then you will have to take anything we offer. If I hadn't assured him you would be reasonable, we would have let you be stubborn, starved you out for the remainder of this drought, and never given you. And never given you a price like this. Let's see. I'm catching up. Sorry, I'm a little bit behind on chat. I'll kind of do a page and go back. Long time ago, what have I learned? What have I learned since it happened? Since I chose to become the holder, just given the burden, tried to say the gift. It was not as they said. Ah, I like it. Oh, for the dialogue tag up here. I don't know. Yeah, I kind of I think in this, especially for like a two-line or above dialogue, I usually only omit tags when it's short, like when it's like this much. And this is, I've also not really done it much in this story so far, so it would, I am a little bit concerned that it would be jarring. I'm not sure. Doesn't matter, I guess. Identifiers to make out. That case is, yeah, I think you're right. I mean, yeah, the dialogue's also really long in this and chunky. Um, yeah, it's true. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's just one of the challenges. I think because this was also, I wrote this before I had done screenplays. And one of the things screenplays helps a ton with is sharpening dialogue a lot, at least in my opinion. So that this is very symptomatic of yeah, I think because I don't think I want like I'm gonna go in depth enough to change like all the different tags or like all the different lines themselves, but probably with a line that long I would keep a tag in the short term. Ugh. But you're right, it is kind of this it is that's your it's a wash, I think at this point. But I think the two goals were like I wanted to bring it back to the scene because I thought we were losing some of the sense of scene, and then also it was a long dialogue tag, so I wanted to be safe. It's a tough season, the farmer replied. It's been a tough season, the farmer replied, kicking the dust at his feet into a trench. Kicking the dust at his feet into a trench and staring up the cloudless sky. Awful dry, but like I said, I've survived worse. Robert laid a hand on Charles's bony shoulder and replied in a softer tone, "It's been a tough decade, Mr. Dalton, one of the worst on record. Please don't go down with your ship because you have some vain hope that the weather patterns will change or the stars will flicker. Look at the facts. Hell, look at the weather reports. Remember, I'm on your side here." Charles narrowed his eyes, studying the broker and remaining silent. They held each other's gaze for long seconds. I'm actually gonna do. It's been a tough decade, Miss Dalton. Worse on record. Remember on your side here. Charles narrowed his eyes, studying the broker and remaining silent. They held each other's gazes for a few long seconds before the broker grunted, tossed his briefcase into his Porsche, jumped inside, and called at the window. "Be sure to sign the term sheet and get it on my desk by Monday." The engine roared and the car bounded toward, and the car bounded towards the interstate, leaving a cloud of exhaust and dust in its wake as it wound out of sight. Boy's got one hell of a mouth on him, Charles mumbled as his eyes followed the car's retreat. He sighed, and the tension eased from his shoulders. Trying not to look at his orchard's dry leaves, he turned towards his old house and climbed the porch steps toward the door. It was a good-sized, stout sort of home. If it had arms, they would be open for an embrace. The russet roof sagged slightly with the repose that marks the aged and wise. Walls that once housed a large, bustling family now peacefully basked in the afternoon sun. A few large oaks had cozied up to the corners of the home, and the hedge in front provided a green contrast. It's just too much. Just one shorter. It's getting a little long. Boy's got a hell of a mouth on him. I think that's right. Boy's got. I think that is much better. Good correction. Yeah, you're right. I think you're absolutely right. That is definitely the goal. uh, there are some times when I can pull it off, and it's dialogue is always been a challenge for me, which is one of the reasons I went into screenplays in the first place, because I was like, well, if I can figure it out in a screenplay, I can figure it out everywhere. But yeah, you're supposed to be able to cover the all the dialogue markers on your screenplay and see if you can still like make sense of the script and who's talking, which is super hard. Oh man, yeah, but you're absolutely right. The north wind picked up as Charles watched inside, muttering a few more under the breath comments about the broker. Charles's chair slid slowly across the smooth, worn wooden floor as he took his place at the kitchen table. He pulled his term sheet and the documentation. And his documentation from his pocket and spread all the papers out in front of him. An old soup can turned pencil holder rattled as he scooted up his chair. He rested his reading glasses on the tip of his nose. As he rested his reading glasses on the tip of his nose, and the number came into focus. $15 million. And he only needed to pick up a pen and sign. Let's see if I got any more notes. And the number became clear. Came into focus. Number came into focus, became clear. He rested his reading glasses, and the number became clear. The number came into focus. I may stick with my original word choice on that one for now. I do like the suggestion. I think the reason why is because I probably am leaning more towards just like kind of him putting the glasses on and the letters kind of like going from fuzzy to sharp. So that was kind of the image I think I was going for. So I probably will lean towards that in the short term. So yeah, but it's a good note though. It's more like, okay, like should I kind of go back and rethink that image, which I may. It's getting late though, so speed speed at this point in time is my goal. The chair marked the spot where his grandfather told his grandmother. The wind rose outside, and the old rocking chair on the front porch creaked. The chair marked the spot where his grandfather had told his grandmother that they no longer had to rent, that they could settle down and start a family that had bought the land. He wondered what they would say to their grandson if they knew he was selling their orchards for a clean $15 million. He blushed. They'd raised him and his parents here. They'd fought to keep the land. He and his sister had the best childhood they could wish for because his grandfather had saved enough for the orchard. Even now, he lived in a snug spot between the pages of an old photo album He closed his eyes and imagined his family's voices, filling the now empty hallways with conversation of laughter. Those years, they did everything together: fishing, movies, stargazing, everything. Fishing. Stargazing, everything. But like a dandelion, it only took one puff of wind to scatter his family to the four corners. Charles was a stem that stayed behind, marking that the beating heart of his family had thrived there once, and could again, and might again. But he was getting older now. But he was getting older now. An urge in his gut told him to pull one of his favorite books from his shelf and read it until he forgot about the whole thing. But the broker's sharp tone and the contract's crisp, formal print took the energy from his legs. He supposed he must have read everything in that house twice over anyways. He bit his lip in frustration. His family had left. His brother and sisters flew to New York and San Francisco and got real jobs. He had been the only one stupid enough to keep the farm. The screen door rattled in the wind. The breeze carried the scent of rain. That should be separate thought. Scared the scent of rain inside, but Charles knew too many years of drought to hope. The thought itself annoyed him. He swore aloud, snatched a pen from the can, knocking it over, and signed the contract. Night, guys. Don't worry, I'm going to bed in a few minutes too. I think they would be better as they had, or they raised him. Oh, let me see. I'm a little bit behind. Sorry, I'm kind of going in and out of in the zone mode in an attempt to go to bed as well. So forgive my long comment lapses. Let's see. They raised him. They raised him and his parents here. Yeah, I think that works. All right, so let's see. I'm almost. They raised him and his parents here. They fought. They fought to keep the land. He and his sister had the best child that they could wish for because it's enough. Appreciate your mercifulness. The screen door rattled in the wind. The breeze carried the scent of rain inside, but Charles, okay, he got mad because of the hope. Over a dozen places needed to be initialed or signed. He plowed through, page after page, trying to ignore the sinking feeling of loss twisting his gut. I have got twisting in his stomach. He signed the final line of the term sheet with a scribble barely passable as a signature. He stood up he stood up rapidly. His chairs. He jolted. His chair slammed against the bookshelf behind him as he pushed open the swaying screen door and marched outside. The wind turned the contract's pages on the table behind him as he continued past his porch and onto the dirt driveway where he and the broker had started talking. The reds of the setting sun shone clear through the unobscured sky. I think unobscured's a word. It's telling me it's not. Google, save me. Yep, unobscured's a word. I don't know why you're kind of unobscured by the pollution of the city. For now, the northern wind held that black cloud at bay. He turned and paced on the soft carpet of grass between his house and the orange grove to his right. I don't think I need to be that specific with direction. Images of him and his sister playing tag washed over his mind, and the sweet scent of freshly cut grass that always followed his father's lawnmower bit his nostrils. He remembered his father sitting on the porch reading the Iliad aloud to the family, adding twists of his own. He pictured the stout broker piloting a wrecking ball, shattering his porch. Piloting a wrecking ball. And bearing. He shuddered. I still don't know how I feel about this. If I get the sense that it may not this. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about this. I guess I can see why. I'm still not the biggest fan. Oh well. He could see the pieces of his home, his memories being swept away to make room for development with cookie cutter houses. He imagined all the quarter-acre yards with stiff crabgrass and cemented edges uprooting the swaying branches of his orange trees. Houses toting stoic porches and stoic porches. It's a bit weird. That's kind of a weird phrase. Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, I don't like that turn of phrases. I think this piece is a bit weak. This whole paragraph. But we'll see. I don't think I have time to finish it tonight. He could see the piece. I'm just trying to get something that's serviceable. He could see the pieces of his home, his memories being swept away to make room for development with cookie cutter houses. Each home would tout have a quarter-acre yard with stitch crown and cemented edges. There's orange trees for that. Oops. Each home has quarter-acre yards. Yeah. Each home with their quarter-acre yard. Oops. Each home would have a quarter-acre yard. Oh, I see. Homes with quarter-acre yards. Stiff crabgrass and cemented edges would uproot his orange trees. Ah, there we go. Nice. Thank you for the suggestion. I think this is much tighter. Homes with quarter-acre yards, stiff crabgrass, and cemented edges would uproot his orange trees. Small porches and white stucco pillagers would replace the wooden floorboards with wraparound. I want to do something more active than replace. Would. I can do it later. I gotta get to bed. He struggled. Suddenly become an entire neighborhood. He struggled to imagine the barn and back converted into a swimming pool. That's a bit overkill. I already have a good ending on that paragraph. With a laugh at how sentimental he had grown, Charles kicked a rock off his small lawn and tromped up the steps to the porch. The screen door swung lazily at his side as he settled. How would he see it? He wouldn't see the house. Toting porches. Yeah, that's true, huh? I think you're right. Small houses. Homes with quarter-acre yards, different small porches and white circle pillars. I want to make sure I'm understanding your note. Kind of speaking from his head in this part, how would he see it? Toting porches, that's true. See manufacturer. Yeah, I think you're right. Making the verbs a lot more active and seeing that process of his home getting consumed by these things. Small porches and white stucco pillars. Rolled in to replace. Homes with quarter-acre yards would uproot his orange trees. I'll probably. That one I think is going to be a more substantial fix. This is where you get into the meat of stuff where you struggle. At least I do. I tend to ramble as stated, but when you're writing closely, you get your voice out of the way. No, it's very true. I think the final product of this is making it really active and making it something that's very visual. I don't know if it's there yet. Probably for the draft tonight. It's already 1 a.m. I probably can't give that chunk the attention it needs though. But you're right, and like that's kind of half the editing process. Just like this is something this is a section, especially since it's like his decision that I really need to like drill in on because this is like really influencing the choice the character makes, which is like what storytelling is all about, is these choices. With a laugh at how Salman had grown, Charles kicked a rock off his small lawn and tromped up to the steps of the porch. The screen door swung lazily at his side as he settled down in his grandfather's rocking chair and stared out at his land and let the chair's movement ease his mind. Hector Odysseus, another hero from his books, would never sell his home for quick cash, but Robert was right. Charles needed the money, and the drought looked like it was here to stay. He didn't know how many more seasons he could last with the bad weather, but it sure wouldn't be many. He pictured himself lounging in a stylish Santa Monica apartment, and he laughed so hard he nearly fell out of his rocking chair. He had survived everything from drought to fungus rotting the oranges off his trees. But since then, time had faded his sharp blue eyes to gray, and his strong shoulders, which used to fill out his flannel jacket, narrowed to those of a coat hanger. Time had faded and narrowed. Comma, and his strong shoulders, comma, so narrowed. I should do a had narrowed to those of a coat hanger. Since then, time had faded, yeah. Ugh, I hate using those broken up verbs. Yeah, it's getting there. So just making things a bit dirtier match. Yeah, yeah. I think your impulse on like what the next step is absolutely right. My poor brain is just running out of horsepower to like. I think I like because you're right. Like that's exactly the challenge, and it's just like okay, well, what do you piece together to actually like and that's like why I'm, kind of like what we were talking about earlier, right? Where it's like, hey, the scariest thing for me is a document without red markup. I can, the more red markup that's on there, the more it means I have a solution. And this is kind of one of those things where like I don't know what like it's kind of you don't always know what the right edit is, and that's the time where it's like yeah, it's definitely scarier for me when there's no markup and there's no note and there's an issue that's like kind of this like unresolved thing. So I'll don't worry. I'm totally OCD, so I'll probably get back to it when I have a fresh consciousness. The wind drew the scent of rain. Charles tried to ignore every forecast predicted another year of drought, but he couldn't stop himself from smiling as he inhaled deeply. The screen door snapped again in the breeze. The screen door clapped again in the breeze, and the broker's contract fluttered on the kitchen table. Charles leaned back and stared at the dimming sky above. In a flash, a star sprung into view. The rocking chair swung forward as Charles moved to get a better view of the sky. The dimming. I don't like using those words too close together. Hmm. Another star. That's right. Two more. A grin spread across his lean cheeks. A grin spread across his lean cheeks. He stretched back in his ch- he stretched back in his chair and watched the rest appear as the sun dipped below the western mountains. The wind crescendoed and he heard it brush the signed contract off the table. The papers rustled in the breeze and pressed against the screen door. The house glowed orange and gold in the dimming light. Charles propped his feet up on the porch rail, and his eyes glowed a brighter blue for a moment. A final gust opened the screen door. The fluttering pages of the contract rolled across the porch. Charles didn't move. The wind picked up, and the documents rolled the rest of the way off the porch. The rest of the way into the lawn. And roll the rest of the way into the lawn. Charles took a deep breath, inhaling the tang the oranges left in the air and the coy suggestion of moisture the wind carried. He sat calmly, confidently, watching the stars flash in the sky as the broker's papers bounded westward into the soft colors of the sunset. The end. Indeed. Yeah. I mean, but that's like one of the reasons, Tang of Oranges. Ooh, that's actually good. Tang of Oranges in the air. Yeah, but I mean, that's the thing about, why I kind of wanted to start this editing channel in the first place, because it's like everybody, struggles with these challenges. Like, I mean, it's sort of like I get the sense, like, when, especially, in the past when I was like writing a lot more on my own, like, you kind of get very isolated. And, I think that's like, it's natural. Like, I think writing is naturally kind of like you just have to like buckle down, put your head down, and kind of do all this stuff. But, I think one of the nice benefits of, kind of doing it like in Twitch, even though it's like super late at night, is to kind of say, hey, look, guys, like, this is not, that's why I edit other people's stuff and my stuff, because it's like, hey, look, my stuff is no less problem free than something anybody else wrote. And that's kind of the moral of the story. It's like it just takes work. It's just a job, and you have to just like put the hours in. It's a little bit frustrating that you're like, well, crap, I still made the mistakes that I have to fix. But that's like the fun part of it. But anyways, I have got to go to bed, or else I will be completely cross-eyed tomorrow. But it was super fun hanging out with you guys. Nice meeting you, Zance, and thanks for the follow. I'm sure we'll hang out again over Twitch in the future. And yeah, take it easy, man. Feel free to send over anything you've written. I'm a big fan. Even if you don't want me to edit it on the stream, I'm a big fan of just reading good stuff. And it sounds like you know your stuff. Just the fact that you're kind of talking through like a lot of these thoughtful edits and stuff like that is a pretty indicative of you kind of like having a good sense of the writing stuff. Anyways, take it easy, guys. Have fun, and that is Final Boss editing for tonight.